Welcome to this week's episode of Pink Boys Racing Podcast. This episode, we're going to talk about supercars and the implications of supercars. So,
I want to start off with definitions first.
yeah,
Who wants to go?
Austin, you started up.
Okay, I guess I'm starting up. When I think of supercars, I think of the big V10, V12, twin turbo V8, guns, lasers, hard angle, just the thing that turns every head on every block. You know, I think of like the Ferrari LaFerrari or the 458 or all the Lamborghinis, honestly, because Lamborghini has always made like the best wall poster, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what I think of when I think of supercars. I think it's something that turns heads but is also ungodly powerful and capable.
But at the same time, with the new classification coming out of hypercars, how far into supercars actually go?
Yeah.
'Cause you got hypercars like the 1-to-1 Koenigsegg and all that.
The McLaren P1.
Exactly, they're supposed to be this end-all, be-all, hugacious, massive pieces of wonderness.
To me, a supercar is something that's usable. Like you could drive it on the weekends around
Right.
town. A hypercar, there's very few of them you could actually
Well, the P1.
use. You know what I mean? The P1, yes. The P1 is a good exception. Even what is the new Porsche?
LaFerrari.
The 918.
That and you got the LaFerrari.
Even that one's usable. But like when you come to things like the Koenigsegg 1-to-1, you're not gonna daily that. The only time you're gonna get that out is when you have an access to a track. Just about.
Unless you got big cojones.
Yeah.
Unless you want to drive around in your $1 million car and you don't really care about price.
Mhm.
I guess
The thing
comes
is,
to a
it's-
certain thing of how
Thing
much
is,
money
you
you wanna
see
worry about.
people, not very often, but you see people who daily their 911 turbos
Well, so
or
say if I
their,
had my career 9G or GT4 like I want to, I'd be tailoring that.
Mm-hmm. See, that's where the cutoff is to me. It's like when it becomes a hassle to use it in a daily
But
situation.
at the same time, isn't that kind of what the hypercars are? Because you have them so low, like you got that Ferrari Enzo and stuff. That car is like what, 2.8 inches off the ground or whatever?
Yeah, it's
so
super low.
You
You would never take
you-
that over a speed bump.
Right, you could daily drive it,
But
but it's too
we're
low.
talking about definitions. We'll get into the debating
Logistics.
But it is
whether-
kind of a definition though, it is defining.
Well,
You define
see,
it
where
as
I think,
visibility.
when I think of hypercars, I think of this is a company showing off what they can
Like
do.
a flagship, yeah.
Yeah, that's them going. Look at what we can do.
Yeah, here's-
we gave it 1,000 horsepower and all-wheel drive, and it shoots flames out behind the driver's heads.
Here's our greatest technology that we have right now.
Yeah, they're gonna lose money on every hypercar they sell.
But I don't think
I mean,
Koenigsegg
even look-
loses money.
Probably not Koenigsegg, but like when you think of like the
Bugatti.
Lexus LFA,
Oh, yeah, they lost money.
that's a super expensive car, and they
400,000.
and they lost money on everyone that got sold. It cost more money to make them than it did to sell them.
Again,
I
we're
think that comes
just
into
talking about
marketing,
definitions
though.
right now.
Well, he said describe the line. You know, where do you find the line?
Yeah, but I mean, we need to each get through a definition and then.
All right.
talk
Well,
about it.
you've heard mine, so John or Cam, what do you pick?
So my definition is definitely a little bit different than Austin's. Mine is, you don't need to be able to drive it every single day. It's more of like a looks thing, like how many heads can you turn with this car?
Yeah.
Because like there's very understated supercars that like, or not necessarily supercars, but cars that have supercar power, but they don't turn heads.
Right.
Like Porsche Panamera Turbo, that thing can blow the doors off of not every supercar, but a lot of. It's fast, but it doesn't turn heads. No, like your average person won't go, oh, look at Panamera Turbo. Nobody does that.
But
So
they
it's
do.
Not-
if
not
it's a
non-car
car,
people, though.
if it's a car guy, you go, oh wow, like that's a fast
Well, I
car.
mean, they
But
see the Porsche emblem and it turns their head.
Well, yeah, but it's when you're just looking at a four-door sedan, you're
Yeah,
gonna be
you're-
like,
yeah.
But it looks like
They
a
bought a
Porsche
bottom of the
before.
barrel
again,
Porsche.
this is my definition of a supercar.
Right. No.
So-
I was interjecting there because like, just a brief skirt is like, you see the people that drive around in like the Porsche Boxsters and stuff. It's like a $10,000 car from back in 2000. I'm talking like the old ones.
oh yeah, you can pick
But-
them up
yeah.
cheap now.
But the point is that they still come across as your average
As
Joe
money.
Blow.
Mhm.
Everybody's like, oh, you have a Porsche. You know what I mean? So I see what you're saying. Like, it's still the bottom of the barrel Porsche, but a lot of people just see the name and they're like, oh.
Very
well,
true.
Well, again, that's where my definition of a supercar is. When people go, wow, like that person that has money, even though you can buy one for $10,000.
Right, yeah.
Like my $3,000 Miata turns so many heads, it's unbelievable. And for me personally, that is a supercar because it makes other people's day when they see
Right.
it. They are happy when they see that car. It doesn't matter how much power it has, doesn't matter how fast it goes. It's turns heads and
That's
it
a-
makes people's day.
That's an interesting way of
It's
looking
a
at it.
different definition.
So that, and then hypercar is the cars that are just bonkers, like they're bonkers looks and they're bonkers fast.
yeah.
So that's where mine separates is one can just be all aesthetics.
Yeah.
That's a supercar, but then you get into like sports cars and hypercars, which are the ones that go fast. And a hypercar can also be a supercar because it turns heads. It is just, for me, it's in both categories.
Right.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Never would have thought about it that way.
Yeah.
What about you, Cam?
I don't know, I guess I'm kind of torn there because I think of hypercars and I think of supercars and everything's kind of becoming that hypercar, supercar era nowadays. Everybody's obsessed with chasing the goal, chasing the power. So trying to set a limit of definitions to one or the other, it kind of comes into blurred lines like that.
Mhm.
Well, you know, when I think of a supercar, I think of like the Ferrari Enzo, the Celine S7. I'm a very dated
I love
person
the Celine S7.
because those are my
Did you
kind
see
of
they're
cars.
making a new one? 1,000 horsepower Celine S7. I saw
Maybe
something
they
about it on
already had
Facebook today.
1,000 horsepower.
Yeah,
Celine
they have.
S7.
Well, they're coming out with a new one though.
I want to see that because I know they tried to replace it with the Raptor, and that never came, or it was. I know they had a
haven't heard about
concept
it,
for
I
the
guess.
Raptor.
Yeah, never heard about it.
Have you played Forza 4? It was in there.
Well, I didn't.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
It's in there. It was kind of around that area when they announced it, but that's what they were coming to. But I don't know. It's just I kind of feel like a supercar is the long, mid-engine, low. It's the Ferrari Enzo or the Celine S7, or I guess the higher end Porsches. I mean, I don't know how close I would call a supercar versus just a high end sports car.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, like the Corvettes nowadays, they're in the GTRs and stuff. I don't quite consider those supercars.
Those are just top of the line sports cars.
Yes.
But they're
I would
exactly.
say.
That's where I have a hard time with Porsche. Don't get me wrong, I love Porsches, but until they get to a certain aspect, the whole mid or rear engine and all that, those standard cars aren't getting up there. I mean, like the Carrera GT now, that's a supercar. So like, you know, I get the Porsche, and I love my Porsches, like the Carrera, the Cayman GT4.
Oh, they're definitely cool cars.
Right, no,
Mhm.
it's just and I wish they kind of were considered a supercar. In my
Oh, by
aspect.
John's definition, they are.
By yeah, but my aspect, it kind of comes to the mid-engine, low, long.
It's the more classic, kind of like mine, where it's the more classic definition of something
Right.
that's gonna turn heads, be stupid fast.
Right, I think it has to not only have the looks, but some supercars are just ugly. So
The Gumpert.
exactly, I mean, some supercars are.
That
just
being
fucking
said, I
ugly.
actually kind of like the Gumpert.
I like them, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, everyday person might just be like, well, what's that?
What the fuck is that?
It's kind of like the new Nissan Altimas, I think, the new Nissan styles.
Oh,
where they
with
come
like
up
the
to.
weird big
Yeah.
grill
They're
thing.
kind of ugly, but the more you see them, the more you get used to them.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I don't know, it's just kind of that point where it's kind of.
It's kind of the
Hard.
same
It
way
has-
with the Bentley
it has to have a
Continental
look.
GTs. When they first came out, it's not that great looking,
Right.
but now that it's been around for,
You're kind of
what,
used
10
to it.
years now,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's been a while.
I really like the Bentley Continental. Like,
I mean, I think it has to have a look. It has to have a certain look. I mean, it doesn't have to have be a looker per
It
se.
just
It has to have
a-
a look.
yeah,
It has to have a presence.
It has to be different than everything else.
Right, it has to have a presence. It has to have announced itself, but it has to be able to back up that presence and
Yeah,
announcing.
that's to have the power of the
It has to
speed.
be able to handle. It has to be able to go. It has to be able to stop. It has to be able. It has to be able to do
So
all
what
that.
would be your list of cars that meet that? Like, if you had to pick a few cars, a few
A few?
supercars by your definition, what would it be?
Honestly, if I could pick 5, I'd be amazed. I mean, there's plenty of that would be by my definition, but I don't pay attention to too much of the new cars. I'm kind of older car kind of
Just
guy.
throw out a couple cars you'd like to
So
have in that kind of
I
category.
think I'll do Sling S7 absolutely all day long. I love the Sling S7. They are beautiful cars, and you can't just go wrong with that freaking motor.
Yeah.
Oh, that sound.
I
it's just beautiful.
know.
Especially the twin turbo ones.
Mhm.
Those are my favorite.
Mm.
But then you got Ferrari Enzo. I'm gonna say all the cars I used as examples basically.
Yeah.
Those are just the cars that I grew up as a child.
They stand out.
Well, I mean, they're not just a standout. It's just I grew up as a child seeing these cars. These were the cars that were kind of like my hero cars as a child. And I grew up with having models of these cars, and these are my supercars. Whereas, you know, like a 1-to-1 might be a hypercar now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, I mean, I'm thinking like, so we got the S7 twin turbo, we got, what did I say, the Ferrari Enzo.
Yeah.
We got, I would say a Porsche Carrera GT. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but it's just one of those iconic from what I remember, what I can pull from my brain at this instant. I'm gonna say a Carrera GT because I like them and they are very beautiful cars. A Ford GT, not the new one. I like the new
the
ones,
older,
but
the
I want
V8
the
ones.
older, and I would much rather prefer a streetable GT40 from back in the 60s.
Yeah,
and
which
Mark-
good luck,
the
but-
Mark ones.
Yeah.
The Mark ones are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna call that my list.
What about you, John?
Mine, again, it's all personal preference, especially with my definition, because it's all basically looks based. But my list would shallow. But my list, these cars would be the ones that I would pick to be my supercar. But they also have the backing, like the backing of the power and the speed.
Yeah.
So my first one would be kind of an oddball with the Ascari A10.
Ooh.
Just-
Ooh. I didn't even.
Yeah, just because it looks absolutely bananas and it's fast
It
and
makes
it's
such
awesome.
a good noise too.
Yeah. And then another more common one would be an Aston Martin DB9 just because of how beautiful it is.
Classy.
I always think about the Aston Martin.
Yeah, just so I mean that when you see that coming down the road, you're like, wow, that's really pretty.
I like the Vulcan. That
Oh
is
my
Yeah.
god. That you'll never ever
You'll
see
never
a
see
Vulcan
one,
in
yeah.
real life.
Yeah.
There was one at what was it? I don't think it was Pebble Beach, but it was one of the higher end Concours d'Elegance
Yeah.
events that was down there. That just happened
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, and there was one there, I think.
And then my last one would be quite a common car would be the Lamborghini Gallardo.
Okay.
So again, it has the power and the speed, but it also has a look. So you drive up on a sidewalk, everybody's, oh wow,
Right.
like look at that car. It's incredible. So
Before we get to Austin, I'm going to have to interject and add one more car to my list that I completely forgot about. And so we started touching on some other cars. Maserati MC12.
yeah.
That is my end-all, be-all number one, I think.
Yup.
It totally slipped my mind, but as soon as I'm like, wait, I had to say something. Sorry to interject.
No,
but-
absolutely fine.
Yep.
My list comprises of a lot of Italian. Like I love
Italians are
I
beautiful
love
cars.
the Italian supercars. I think my list would be number one on that list would be the Pagani Zonda F Roadster. That car is just
Beautiful. And it sounds amazing.
oh my god. Mercedes AMG V12. Plus it's still a convertible, so
Yeah.
I get to have my hair in the wind. John actually stole mine. I love the Lamborghini Gallardos. I know they're not, now that they're getting older, they're not exactly the end-all be-all of Lamborghinis
Yeah.
anymore, but
So
they weren't even at
supposedly-
their time, but
To Pulse, you can get like a 2004 like for around $70,000.
yeah, they're
Yeah,
so cheap.
Higher. I look at supercars all the time. Yeah, like 20,000 miles, like one of the first ones you can get for under $100,000.
That's
So, but
It's still a lot of money, but
most of them are around
It's-
$100,000.
It's a lot of money, but to think when they came out, they were what, $250
Yeah, they're
cars?
They were expensive.
A lot more expensive than that, and you get a lot of car for $100,000.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of repair.
But I love the Aventador. I even love the Murcielago, the one that most people forget about.
That again, that goes into one of the cars that's iconic for me, and it kind of actually pushes out the Aventador and all that.
I know,
So it's just cars that
It
I
was
grew
just
up with.
bonkers. It didn't have the insane looks as most of the other Lamborghinis.
It did.
But the
when it was going up
Murcielago
above.
had the guts to back itself up.
It had the looks when it was going up above a certain mile an hour that I don't remember exactly.
Flaps
and
open.
The vents came up.
Mm. The Zonda, I love the Huayra too.
Mm-hmm.
That's another.
That's
I've
one of the
always
newer
loved
classic
Paganis.
cars that I really
I've
like.
always loved Paganis ever since I knew they existed.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was little and played a Gran Turismo game and it had one of the first Zonda out.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is this car? It's got jet fighter exhaust in the back. What is this? Oh my god. And so ever since then, I want to have one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll get to the other Italian manufacturer, Ferrari 458. I want to have a 458 in my life one day. Either that, or was it the F12 Berlinetta?
Mm-hmm.
The 458 is where it's kind of on that fuzzy line between high-end sports car.
Or low-end supercar.
Exactly,
I would say
because
it's more of a low-end supercar than it is a high-end sports car.
I just kind of feel like it's on the same. I mean, it's not on the same pedigree, but I feel like it's on the same level as
Yeah.
like a GTR and a Z06 Corvette
Mhm.
from nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Like the C6,
speed
Z06.
similar. They're the same.
Well, they're all performance all around. They're
Yeah.
all pretty really close. If my memory serves me well, they should all be relatively close.
Mhm.
That's where it kind of fades that line down for
Yeah.
me,
Mm-hmm.
where they're still beautiful cars.
With all the manufacturing companies coming out with their look what I can do cars,
it's
it's
kinda hard to
making
separate
it's making the categories kind of blurry now.
Mhm.
I see what you're
Mhm.
saying, because like the LaFerrari, the 918, and the P1, and even the Koenigsegg 1-to-1. I don't think any of us would doubt that those were hypercars.
Right. Yeah.
But those are, we're going to put all of our money in these projects and show off cars.
Right.
But when it comes to their sports and supercars, it is starting to get blurry. That's
Now, I guess we're kind of skipping over the forgotten, most talked about supercar. I guess we personally, the Bugatti Veyron, and then now coming out.
Veyron. You mean Veyron?
Well,
Don't get fancy on us, Cam. You're wearing a hat backwards.
it's my style.
It's
thank you.
the Veyron.
But then now they got the Chiron.
The
The
Chiron.
Chiron, yeah.
Chiron.
Who cares how they pronounce it? I'm more.
We do because you're pronouncing it wrong.
I'm from Greek mythology, and that's
Okay.
Chiron.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean it's just like we're sitting here talking about our supercars, but it's kind of funny that we kind of just. laid
You're right,
over
that is
those.
kind of
Well,
funny.
the Bugatti was the start of the hypercar.
It was.
That
it
was
really was.
that was the like supercars tops, and then the Bugatti came in. That's when it opened up the hypercar.
But I feel like a lot of us performance enthusiasts kind of just.
You want to know what killed the Bugatti Veyron for me? The song "I Woke Up in a New Bugatti."
Oh, yeah.
That, I'm gonna rant here for a second, but that killed all of my wow about the Veyron, because it was an amazing piece of engineering. It
No,
was a
it's
car
just a
that did
status symbol.
250 miles an hour, but was still comfortable and had a stereo and
Right.
airbags and comfy seats. And it was an amazing piece of engineering. And it literally just became a status symbol. It became, look what I can buy.
Yeah.
And that's what killed that car for me.
Yeah.
I feel like they made it too everyday accessible.
I don't think so.
But they did. If all these millionaires and stuff are talking about buying Bugattis and this is what they're going to use them for, and not necessarily car enthusiasts, they just want something to show it off.
But
And they
then
put it
that's
at the
gonna-
point that it can be drivable on a consistent basis.
Yeah, but that was their goal, was to be something
Yeah.
that anyone could drive.
Right, but
And honestly-
that's where it kind of kills that status symbol.
Yes, it kills it, but that's okay to me. I understand why Bugatti did it, because if that car did 250 miles an hour and was a gutted out aluminum tub, no one would buy it.
Yeah.
And then
like,
what's the
the
point of
hardcore
making it
dude-
if nobody buys it?
But you say that, but
But-
then you got to go back to the Enzo and stuff, where back in the day those weren't exactly
Yeah, but they
bearable
only
cars.
they didn't make
They
a whole
didn't, yeah.
lot of them.
It would
And
be-
you, Ferrari actually picked people who would
Well,
buy
I know,
them.
but you just
They
kinda go
offered
back
the car
that-
to certain
But you
people.
go back to that mindset and you think about it, is that those were the hypercars of their day,
Yeah.
where they're now considered kind of more of the supercars, but those were like the hypercars of the day, and those are like just the quintessential thing. But you think about them, and
I
they're
thought of another car I would add to
bare
my list.
bones. They're just bare bones. So it's just kind of funny when you think about it that we were talking about putting a Bugatti somewhere, and now it's a supercar, but it's daily drivable.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of, I mean, I'll let you do that in 1 second. I just want to bring up the fact that what would you do with your list of supercars? You know, what would be your use of them? Would you drive them often? Would they just be garage queens?
Oh, hell no. And I want to add the one to my list real quick. The Ferrari F40.
Yep.
I don't know how that passed my head.
Yeah, that was kind of like me and the Maserati. It's just,
The Ferrari F40, I would kill to have one of those in my garage.
they're beautiful things too.
But-
Like the one.
As you said, I would not sit and stare at my car. I mean, I would, because I'd be like, oh my god, I own these. But I would definitely drive them.
Mhm.
There's no way I wouldn't. Hell, I'd autocross the Zonda just for shits and giggles, you know?
Right.
But like, let's say I had an F40, I would take that to track days. I'd take that to car shows. I'd stand next to it with a guard dog, but
Right.
I would take it out so people could see it.
Yeah.
It's one thing to take it out so people could see it, but at one point do you become afraid of it being irreplaceable?
That's
I
that's
don't-
also true.
I feel like if I had the Maserati, you don't see them. They are extremely rare cars. The Maserati MC12, they are rare. You
Well,
you
they're
don't-
rare beyond. I mean, there's rare cars, and then there's that
Well, that's what
car.
I'm saying. Is that as much as I would love to use it for what it can do, I think it would end up being a garage queen for me.
What's the point of having it if you never drive it?
Because it's just a beautiful piece
Are
of
we car enthusiasts to look at cars or to drive cars?
It boils down to money. If you
Not
have,
only
if you
that,
have the
but
money,
I don't
then
think
you
it's
can do it.
money. I think it's more of me being afraid to replace it, having to not necessarily replace it.
Who cares?
I do because I don't want to hurt this beautiful piece.
Then don't hurt it.
Well, things happen when you're on the
Mhm.
track. You just
Or on the
you never know.
road.
Exactly. You never know. You might have some idiot who just isn't paying attention. Boom, hits your.
The thing about having a car like that, though, everyone's gonna notice it.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
really,
you have
I
someone
agree with
texting
you.
You're
go
trying.
through
You're
a
trying to
stop
tell
sign.
me that a bright red Ferrari goes down the street and everyone's just gonna be like, whatever.
But you think about it. How much do they pay attention to it actually?
I see what you're saying. It's kind of like, motorcyclists think about who's not paying attention. But
Yeah.
It's just one of the things where you.
like
never-
I said, are we enthusiasts because we like to look at cars or because we like to drive cars?
I'm both. I like to look at my cars. I would.
Yeah, I mean, it's different for every person.
Right,
too.
exactly. I mean, I see what you're saying. It's just,
Yeah.
I agree with you fully, except for I think there's just certain.
There's a certain
aspect.
limit.
Mhm.
Right,
I can
I
understand.
think my
that.
Maserati would be in that limit of I'm not doing anything.
Mhm.
I'm not touching. I'm not risking it. As much as I want to drive it and use it as potential, unless I have my own private track in my backyard.
Yeah, where there's
no
no
guardrails.
There's a hotel somewhere that has it on its grounds. It's a private racetrack.
There's a
For
guy that owns his own house that has a private racetrack back there.
I want to be his friend.
And I think, to touch on another channel, there's After Drive, not After Drive, but Drive TV. I think they actually touched on a subject where they were talking about the CTSV or ATSV, one of the two, and they're talking about driving on that racetrack.
Mhm.
Cool.
Well, that wraps up this episode. Leave a comment below of what your ideal supercar or supercar list would be. That'd be great to know. See what you guys think about that. So, yeah.
And if you ever have any subject ideas for things we could talk and bullshit about, be sure to drop a comment.
Yeah, leave us a comment, leave us a like, leave us suggestions. whatever you can
Subscribe.
do.
Anything, yeah. See you next week.
Yeah, see you guys.
Cool.
Anus.